Facilitated diffusion is a term that is given when molecules, bigger molecules such as glucose or molecules that have a charge, cross the membrane with the assistance of a protein. Now, the other important thing about facilitated diffusion is that it doesn't require energy. And it doesn't require energy because, again, we're moving molecules within the concentration gradient, which means we're going from an area where there's lots of those molecules to an area where there's less of them. Again, facilitated diffusion is the movement of molecules, large molecules such as glucoses, or molecules with a charge, and they require the assistance of a protein, and it doesn't require energy. Active transport is the movement of molecules against the concentration gradient. Since we're going against the concentration gradient, it requires energy. And it also requires the assistance of proteins. So when you think about active transport, think about gravity. Think about going, upstairs. Because you're going against gravity, it requires more energy. Again, active transport, it requires the assistance of proteins, and we're going against the concentration gradient, which means that we require energy. So now let's go back to talking about eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells are distinct from prokaryotic cells in many different ways. And one of those is that it actually has organelles or membrane-bound organelles. And each of those organelles perform different functions. So let's talk about those organelles and their specific functions. The first organelle is the nucleus. And inside the nucleus, you find, in my opinion, one of the most important components of a cell, and that is the DNA. So the DNA needs to be protected, so it's surrounded by a nuclear envelope. This nuclear envelope is made up of lipids, so it's a lipid bilayer. And the purpose of that bilayer is to allow certain things to go in and certain things to go out of the nucleus. Organelle is the endoplasmic reticulum, also known as ER. And there's two different kinds. If in the endoplasmic reticulum you also find ribosomes that are embedded within it, then we call it the rough ER. The reason why we call it the rough ER is because of the presence of ribosomes. And because you find ribosomes, then the function of the rough ER is to synthesize proteins. Synthesize proteins that are going to be embedded within the cell membrane. However, if you don't find ribosomes in the ER, then we call it the small ER. And the purpose of the small ER is to synthesize lipids or fats. Another organelle is the Golgi apparatus. The function of the Golgi apparatus is to package and transport proteins to their final destination where they need to be. Specifically, proteins that are embedded within the cell membrane. Nucleus, the endoplasmic reticulum, and the Golgi apparatus work together to produce and transport proteins. Proteins that are going to be embedded within the cell membrane. Is the mitochondria. The mitochondria serves a very important purpose. The mitochondria is also known as a power plant or powerhouse of the cell. And the reason why it's called a power plant is because we make a very important molecule called adenosine triphosphate, also known as ATP. ATP is the source of energy that the cell uses in order to do all the functions that we associate with being alive. Again, the mitochondria is known as the power plant or the powerhouse of the cell because within the mitochondria we make a molecule called adenosine triphosphate or ATP, which is the source of energy for the cell. Another organelle is the chloroplast. So plants and algae have chloroplast. And the purpose of the chloroplast is they're involved in photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is basically capturing the energy from the sun. And what they do is they use that energy from the sun in order to make food for the plants and at the same time, they actually make food for us humans as well. So the chloroplast is a site of what we call photosynthesis, which is basically synthesizing the energy from the sun in order to make energy for the plants and also energy for ourselves as well. The organelle is lysosome. So lysosomes are full of digestive enzymes, and the purpose of the lysosome is to break down worn out cell parts or molecules or cells that have been compromised. So lysosomes serve a very important protective role when it comes to the cell. Cytoskeleton is another organelle, which is a network of protein fibers, and their function includes cell support, self-movement, and movement structure within the cell. So the cytoskeleton is composed of 3 different fibers. You have microfilaments, you have intermediate filaments, and then you also have microtubules. Again, the cytoskeleton is composed of microfilaments, intermediate filaments, and microtubules. And as the name implies, it actually gives the cell its shape.